Jeremy from Jeremy.net. I am a comic book artist, writer, creator, self-publisher, and I share my creative process here with you online. If you would like to support this channel, get additional bonus live streams twice a month, be able to read my comic books for free online, see all sorts of behind-the-scenes artwork and process, you can become a Patreon subscriber at patreon.com/Jeremy. That's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you would like to get a free digital sketchbook, be able to get work in progress animated GIFs delivered directly to your inbox, be able to read about what I'm consuming, what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what creative content is fueling my interests, you can sign up for my monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you would like to purchase physical copies of my comics, or if you read digitally on Comixology or Kindle, you can head on over to amazon.jeremy.net. That will forward you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up books like my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. This is a psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. Or you can pick up my most recent comic book series, Morning Star. Morning Star tells the story of Lucifer's fall from heaven, told as a Western. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4 of an 8-issue series. Volume 2 contains the conclusion, issues 5 through 8. Both volumes have extensive back matter, character sketches, character designs, script excerpts, and more. You can check out all of that at amazon.jeremy.net. All right. So here we are. I see got Amaris in the chat. Ion Rocks. See Byron here. How you guys doing? Amaris says, fell in love with bookbinding. Not sure I should take that to the next level and start a small shop. You know what I say? Go for it. Life is short. Try all the things you want to try. Have fun. All right. Let's see. We've got someone new in the chat. SOD4. Hey, how you doing? Thank you for dropping in. So, what am I up to today? The Gorgon piece continues. I feel like I've actually made some progress on this one now. You know, now with adding all of these scales in here, mostly I'm just deep into scales country. Like I, went through, painted all these different scales on the serpents. Once I finish off the scales, I really just need to decide how much detail I need to put in to bring this to a finish. That's the stage we're in here, is just bringing this piece in for a landing. Figure out what kind of polish I need to do to wrap it up. There's stuff like the line work. I don't have it quite to the point where when I turn off the line work for the sketch, the face still doesn't stand out on her own. So I think what I might do, I'm trying to decide whether I want to paint in forms to try and solidify the shapes that I lose with the line work. I don't know how well you guys can see that. Let me come in a little bit closer. So this is with the line work, and this is without. So what I think I might do is actually just come in and try to color the line work as opposed to trying to paint in the whole thing without any lines. Because I do tend to be more of a drawer as opposed to a painter. So let's see here. Amar's in the chat. Good to see you, Amar. How you doing? Having a sip of coffee there. I am still sort of waking up. Let's see. So yeah, a lot of serpent scales painted in here. And I have to tell you, I was working on this last night, and this was just really soothing, just painting all these scales in there. There's something very meditative about it. Imagine kind of like crocheting or knitting. There's something about just going through these simple hand movements that's it's very relaxing. So I'm just going to mask off the rest of the figure, so I just have the serpents, and then I can double check, make sure I'm on the right layer, and I can come in here and So true, it's not scales, but I'm trying to add a little bit of light to some planes that would be kind of facing towards the light. With these serpents that are up high, they're getting it on the underside, whereas the ones down near the bottom are getting it on the top of the top of their bodies. So just as you move up the figure, the lighting basically is always coming from the back. But then as we start moving up and up and up, we're having it coming from the underside back as opposed to above from the back. And I think the hardest part for this is just trying not to go overboard, giving just enough to give a sense of detail without over rendering. It's a fine balance. Let's see here. And Amar says, I would have created a scales brush so I can reuse it later for something else. He said the stamps can be totally randomized, so it's not uniform. You know what? I might do that at some point. I actually do have a brush that I've played with. I think that that I was designing for scales. Yeah, I actually do have a scales brush. But I didn't like the way it came out. So the brush needs refinement. So I'm not saying that I'm not going to do it. I probably will create a scales brush at some point. But the one that I tried creating the first time, I just was not happy with the results. So it needs refinement. And for now, it's one scale at a time. Yeah, I think that that's one of the big things, one of the big advantages of working digital is being able to create those texture brushes. You can just very simply paint in with a stroke, and you've got a a fully rendered serpent or whatever. But it does require some refinement and fine tuning to get it right, or to get it to look like the way you want it to look. Plus, I'm always trying to get the serpents to feel like they're turning. And sometimes it's less about having a texture or a pattern and more about the angle of the line that I have there. Yeah, Amar mentions that the stamps can be randomized, so it's not totally uniform. Well, see, the challenge is that it's not a matter that I want them to not be totally uniform. It's more about how I want them to feel like they're wrapping around the form. So the way that they change isn't necessarily something that's easily indicated to the brush. These lines in here, those don't look like they're working. Let me zoom out a little bit. Sometimes it helps if I can kind of look at the thing as a whole before trying to put these lines in. That's a little bit better. Yeah, I zoom in and out constantly as I'm working, trying to get a sense of both the individual details and the whole. Like this, I'm drawing basically the edges of the scales. How the light would be reflecting off of the edge of something before it starts turning towards you. And the real challenge is once you have something that you like, the challenge is to not overuse it. Let's see here. And Amar mentions that's why I like the ribbon feature in Clip Studio Paint. He says when creating brushes, allows you to wrap and follow a path to get the flow you want, along with randomizations. Well, that is another vote in favor of Clip Studio Paint. Everyone seems to love that app. I'll give it another try someday. See, the thing I have to keep remembering is to tell myself not to put much detail in here as I'm drawing these forms of the serpent. Yeah, this is very, very relaxing for some reason. I don't know why. Just putting these little dashes in there and spacing out these light areas. It's very soothing. In fact, I think that when I started doing this, this was probably the most enjoyable phase of this illustration since I started working on it. Let's see here. See Cassiel's in the chat. How you doing? Let's see here. Amar says Clip Studio Paint Pro and X is on sale. 29 for Pro and 129 for EX. I already have, you know what? I'm not sure which version I have, but I already have it for desktop. I just don't feel like paying for it again for iPad. I'll take a look. I thought for some reason, I feel like the iPad version is subscription, but I could be wrong. Yeah, I have Clip Studio Paint on desktop. I've tried it a couple of times and I just didn't like the interface. Let's see here. Cassiel says, I was drawing yesterday, a little perspective. Yeah, some perspective practice is always good. In fact, I've been meaning to dive into, I have the guy who did Framed Ink, the Framed Ink books. I have his 2 books on framed perspective, and I just have not had time to dive into them yet. But I'm looking forward to that. And Amar says, yeah, for working on a tablet, Clip Studio Paint is subscription. And that was the main reason why I stopped using Photoshop. So I'll probably be able to figure out how to do pattern brushes. I mean, I already know how to do pattern brushes in Procreate. I just didn't like the results that I got. So I mean to say I'll learn how to make pattern brushes that I actually want to use over time. And if I can't find any results that I really like, then maybe I'll pony up and just bite the bullet and deal with having a subscription for Clip Studio Paint. I wonder if I would love Procreate as much as I do if they went to a subscription model. Because I really do prefer just buying an app one time and being done with it. Let's see here. Yeah, for right now, I'm just doing very simple, just wrapping scales around the body as it's twisting. Which this is also a very good practice for trying to help myself be more aware of volume. So I have to be aware of how the shape of the scales change depending on the angle we're looking at. You know what? Let me undo a couple of these. Or actually, it's easier for me to just go in and erase them. Because I've got a line here. I don't know how well you can see this, but there was a line that I had that's running like this. And I think that I didn't put that line in there, meaning that we're seeing kind of the underside in, like, it's almost as if this area here could be a second underside, but that's not what I meant. I think that this line was more like me trying to figure out the flow of the shape of the body, but that the belly is kind of spiraling around, so it's up and then spiraling back underneath. So I think that really I should be getting the edge of the underside of the scales completely on this part here. And originally I started drawing it so that it was going back up this line, but no, I think that that's wrong. Let's see here. I see Daniel Goodwin's in the chat. Hey, Daniel, how you doing? Thanks for popping in. Just drawing some scales here on this Gorgon. Having some fun with it. Let's see here. Ion Rock says, I think Procreate should have a subscription. Procreate does not have a subscription. As far as I know, it is you purchase it one time and you get the updates for free. I think believe that that's how it has been since I purchased it. So yeah, you get it one time, but you also don't have to rebuy it when they have new versions. They just give you the updates, which I am very appreciative of. That is how I really like my apps. Let's see here. Just giving these a little bit more volume as the form is turning. And I can very much tell that I am falling into that bad habit of, now that I am getting into the flow of drawing these scales, there's places where I'm just putting them just because, as opposed to really sticking with describing the where there would actually be light, because I'm trying to use the area where there's the absence of scales to also help define the form. But it's real easy to just get caught up in the joy of the mark making. Now we've got this curious creature with the head almost in profile. Although sometimes I think that I do have to put a little bit of detail in here with these serpents where there wouldn't normally be, just so it helps sell the structure. Go around the eye socket. There really shouldn't be any light up here at all. But giving it just a little bit of volume, I think helps. And then having the edge of the belly starting to catch some light as it turns. So hopefully what this is doing is conveying how much this serpent is twisting, giving it a sense of dynamics. A little bit of a frog in my voice today. Apologies. It's one of those days where I woke up and I never 100% woke up. So I've been in a little bit of a fog all morning. What's also interesting is that at the angle that this serpent is twisting, he's kind of backlit in kind of the way that if you were looking at a cylinder and you backlit a cylinder, you would be seeing light on both edges and a dark light running down the core. Which, I mean, you would really be seeing that on all of these serpents, but it's particularly prominent in this one just because of his position here. This twisting cylinder. Let's see here. Amar says, I think people get on the hype train and are amazed that mobile tools can do art and look great. But all it is a tool, and most tablets are more powerful than desktops were 10 years ago. He said, I bought once and it's like open source or one and done. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's not necessarily that I think I don't think it's necessarily, people maybe they are amazed. For me, it's less about amazement and more about comfort because I, at my day job, we actually have Cintiqs, and I have never enjoyed drawing on a large Cintiq. For the most part, when I would do digital work or when I was coloring pieces, I would use the smaller Cintiq tablet, that not the smaller Cintiq. They have a Wacom tablet, not the Intuos, but they have one that's kind of like around Intuos size called the Bamboo. And it's just their very simple, basic one. So I used to do that thing where I would be looking at the screen while drawing with my hand on the tablet. And I preferred that. Just even today, when I draw with the Cintiq, I don't like. I know they do have different styli. I guess that's the plural of stylus. But I never wanted the fact that it was something for work. I was going to go out and buy my own thinner shaped stylus. It's really how the Apple Pencil feels in my hand that I really like working on the iPad. That's what I think for me has made the difference, is how the tool feels in my hand. Whereas with the Cintiq, I always feel like I'm drawing with a marker. It's just, I mean, it has great sensitivity and it's a great drawing tool, but it's just big and chunky, and I don't like the way it feels. Like most of the time when I'm drawing traditionally, if I'm not drawing with a pencil, I'm inking with a brush, and I need something that feels the way a brush feels in my hand. Um, that to me is far more conducive to making art. So it's not really about the tablet itself, but now that I've started working with the iPad, it's the fact that I can have something on my drawing table and put it in the right position. Here, I'll tell you how crazy it is. When I do work with a Cintiq, in order to get it to really feel good or to feel the way I draw, it needs to be the way I am at my drawing board. So I actually have to take the Cintiq, like the big heavy stand that it has, I have to put it at the edge of my desk so that the Cintiq is almost in my lap, so I can draw the way I would draw if I were sitting at the drawing table I'm at now and had my drawing board basically up right up against my body, and I'm drawing like that. So for me, the comfort is a lot more about ergonomics as opposed to tablet device versus desktop device. It's trying to mimic the body positions that I've used in terms of drawing my entire life. That's, for me, that is much more important than the actual digital device that I'm using. All right, I think I'm good on all of the, well, I'm almost good on all the serpents. I do feel like I should add a little bit of scales in her hair here, but very faintly. Matter of fact, let me drop the opacity back a little bit because I need to go a little bit broader, but I want to do it in such a way that they don't really pop out. I don't want them to pop out. I just don't want it to feel like it's going from looking at the edge of the form to nothing. I want it to feel like there's a little bit of rounding, and I don't think that it has enough of that yet. And having a little bit of these scales going into the darkness will give me that. Just a little bit. And now, as opposed to thinking about it rounding the edge, I'm thinking more of light running down the center of these forms. Yeah, pull that back a little bit. At this point, these probably shouldn't even be. Yeah, let me pull some of those back. Yeah, I do need that detail to kind of disappear. Yeah. Now I guess I just need to figure out what to do with the details in terms of the line work. Let's see here. Pardon me, gotta blow my nose. Oh, let's see here. Byron says the funny thing about comfort is that I find mobile device drawing very uncomfortable. Feels unstable in my hands rather than to be at a desk. Well, you know what's funny? I don't know how much you can see of. Well, I have this set up so you can't really see it, but if I switch back to the main camera, like this, so the way I have my setup is that I am streaming from a laptop that's at the top of a drawing table. So it's an angled drawing table that's kind of raising up. Now, what you don't see is in front of me, I have a basically a drawing board like this. And even though my drawing table is angled upwards, I have like a yoga block sitting on top of the drawing board, and that's angling this up even higher. So basically, when I'm drawing, I am using a drawing board, and to give you a profile, I'm using like a traditional ass drawing board, and I've got it angled up like this at me. And when I'm live streaming, this is just below the camera. So I'm actually working like this at an angle. So it's kind of close to the way I would do it if I had just a sheet of Bristol board on a drawing board in front of me, and we're making traditional comics, traditional artwork. And it used to be that I would just have it down on the desk, but I found that there's two benefits. One, it's better for my neck if it's angled even farther up. And even when I would work traditionally, I would usually take my comic pages and I wouldn't just have them flat on my drawing board. I would still have something else angling it up so that I could be working on my comics at a higher up angle. So it's better for my neck having this angled up. And then also, suppose you're having to actively look up to see what's going on the chat and see you guys, I can just be drawing and then just sort of glance up and see if there's any comments that I need to respond to or anything to highlight. Where did my glove go? Oh, here it is. So, yeah, I mean, I can see, for instance, when I first started doing, working on a tablet from my desk, it was awkward because I did have this thing sitting down in front of me and was looking down. And even if I wasn't live streaming, that would be kind of awkward for my neck. But I've gotten used to having to tweak and adjust things to try and find a way to make it ergonomically more comfortable for me. Let's see here. Cassiel says Drawbox has good lessons about perspective. I've seen the Drawbox site. I haven't spent a lot of time on it, but there's so many great resources out there. I'm glad you're taking the time to dive in and learn more about perspective. I need to spend more time. Like, I've studied perspective in the past. I've taken classes on it, but it's one of those topics that can always use some refresher, some brushing up, learning a little bit more. Now, I'm trying to figure out, I thought that I had a layer. No, I do. Okay. This backlit layer, I think I must have merged it, but I painted some textures into that sky there, into that light. Now, a glow might be a bit of overkill. Lips. Happy with the color of her lips. I'm happy with the serpent eyes. That's creepy. All the eyes go out at once. It's the magenta version. I have to go in and recolor. recolor all of the scales. So I'll probably save a duplicate file of this for the magenta version, so I can recolor all those scales to fit the magenta version. Let's see here. Yeah, Cassiel says I'm using what the internet has to offer, and there are tons of great resources out there. Anything you want to learn artistically, the information is out there. So definitely take advantage. See, Iron Rock says, before Procreate, I was thinking about doing an old style comic studio and do comics. Now I'm learning all these things from the new medium. The iPad may be the cheapest art studio out there. He says, however, I'm having anxiety tackling a new medium. Dealing with it is tedious. Procreate has a perspective tool you can use to do your thing. Yeah, I really like the perspective tool in Procreate. I haven't been, again, I haven't drawn a whole comic in Procreate yet, but I really like the perspective tool in there. I think anytime you're trying a new tool, it can be a little bit cause a little bit of anxiety, just because you're like, you don't know how to do the things you want to do yet. But the only way you learn is by just giving stuff a try. So dive in. I mean, yeah, anxiety is understandable, but you learn by trying. You learn by, first off, it's okay to make mistakes. I make mistakes. You've watched me make tons of mistakes on this piece. That's like mostly what I've been doing for the past few months, is pecking away at this piece, trying, misfiring, trying again, and just not quite getting it right. And now I'm closer. I'm in the ballpark. Let me give this a grayscale check. And in grayscale, I am pretty happy with how this looks. So I think I'm going to do two things here. One is I'm going to duplicate the line art layer. And I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to change the tone. Let me unlock this. Actually, let's see what happens if I put this on overlay, because it might just need to be on overlay and we're done. No. To zoom out so I can see the whole thing. Move it off to the side so I can see my my layers. Now we're playing the layer opacity setting game. I'm just going through and looking at different settings, trying to find, is that good? Is that good? Do I like this? Because the other thing I was thinking is just going in and just smudging, either erasing parts of the line art that I don't need and smudging parts that I want to blend in more. Because for the most part, the line art really works for me. Ooh. There you can really see my construction lines. All right, so it doesn't seem like much of those are really doing anything that's benefiting me here. So let's just go back to normal. Oh, I'm not even thinking clearly. What I should do is go in and select different body areas and then color each section. So I can separately color the area that's on her skin versus the serpents. And then I can go in and erase parts I don't need. Hey, look at that. See, Jeffrey in the chat. How you doing, man? He says, do you do comics digitally or the traditional way? Some first comment from Facebook on this, since I started doing multi-platform streaming. That is a good question. I have been doing my comic books traditionally. The next comic book I do is going to be my first completely digital joint. And it's not that I dislike traditional. I love traditional, and in fact, I need to find a way to make time to still continue inking with a brush because I enjoy the tactile sensation of doing that. The way this came about is that I started using the iPad to do my layouts digitally, and I was just drawing my rough sketches. Made it easier, you know, the usual things. You can scale figures up and down, move pieces around, really quick and easy to edit. And as I was doing my layouts, because I go from layouts to inking, I don't really have a pencil stage. Basically, what I do is I do, you know, they're loose pencils or they're tight layouts, one of the two. But that's basically how I do it, because I really don't think someone else could ink directly from my layouts. I mean, there are pages of Morningstar that people did ink in the book. And I intentionally gave them tighter pages so that they could they would have more detail to work from. But actually, no, that's not true. I think I just let them choose what pages they wanted. But my point being is that I was doing the layouts digitally, and as I went through this series, I started realizing that for a lot of them, I kept looking and saying, you know, if I just clean this up a little bit and then just put black lines over this, I could just ink this. Like I was so close to finishing certain pages digitally that I said to myself, I want to just try it just to see how it looks like. And so it's kind of weird in that it's not like I'm saying, oh, digital is the new way and I'm ditching traditional. I was so very, very close to finishing these pages that I'm curious. I want to see how the process feels to do it 100%. And I think it's good to have that kind of curiosity and willingness to experiment. Let's see here. I want to warm this up a little bit. It's not giving me much of anything. Let me switch to shadows because the line art actually is black. So let's see what happens if I shift this to red. Yeah, see, there we go. Now it's giving me some reds, and let me push in some yellow so we get kind of an orangey. Not too much. In fact, I think I might be overblowing it. That's the thing here. Let me pull this back, bring it closer to the black line art. Just a little warmer, browning it up a little bit. Warming up your skin tones there. Yeah, now that I'm looking at it, it's a very fine line. Because the minute I start moving this away from black line art, it starts to really drop out. Part of that is it being on a low opacity, but in fact, I do wonder whether there's any point in me doing that at all. It might be better to just leave it black or leave it in the dark gray. You know what? Let me undo that. Yeah, I think I do like it better the way it is. Let's see here. Some more comments in the chat. see here. Byron had said with the serpent eyes, when they blink in unison. This might make a good NFTs. You just have this, and then have like all the different eyes blinking at different times. So there are kind of like a little flutter of blinking. Something to keep in mind. Let's see here. And Amar says the cheapest way to get into art is pen and paper, but digitally is one of them. It says also all these digital tools are the same. Once you learn one, you're proficient at 5 or 10, if not 5 or 10, if not more, other similar applications. If you're proficient or an expert in Photoshop. Yeah, I think that that's true. They all, you can get, once I open an app, I can get mostly the same results. So it's just a matter of what interface you like and how you enjoy using it. And Cassiel says, I don't use any digital pen or tablet in doing all paper. Personally, it's very practical. It's hard to correct mistakes than in digital. But yes, it's the feeling, I personally, I've mentioned this before. I am pro digital. However, I definitely think that it is better I think traditional is better for actual learning in terms of like just trying to improve your draftsmanship. I will definitely take digital. I mean, take traditional for that any day. I'm really trying to decide whether I even need to clean up these little areas in here. Because there are definitely places in here where there's little marks and things sticking outside of the figure that are kind of off and wonky. But part of me says, just let it be part of whatever the process is, part of whatever the drawing is. So maybe I just erase the construction lines. And I do put a lot of construction lines in the figure. I'm a construction liney kind of guy. Nothing does it for me like a well-constructed figure. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that all these little stray lines need to be erased, or whether they're just part of the character of the piece? Like in here, I should definitely cut out some of these construction lines. Doesn't need them. But overall, I don't know if it needs this kind of like detailed cleanup where I'm like trying to erase out every single line that isn't exactly perfect. I guess I'm trying to give myself permission to be a little bit rougher and a little bit looser. That was a question I was asking myself earlier this year when I was thinking about what I want to do overall as an artist going forward. Is what if my finished pieces looked as close to my rough sketches as possible? What if I really tried to make my style become the rough, loose thumbnail? Because that's where all the energy is. And I think for a lot of us can empathize with that idea that you start with a sketch that you love, And by the time you finish, you've drawn all of the energy out of it. So I was like, well, what if I try to keep the piece looking and feeling like the thing that is energetic? Let's see here. Iron Rock says, for me, digital is fast and saves a lot of concern on process. um, yeah, well, I think that digital can be fast. Basically, for me, it's not necessarily how fast or slow the tool itself is. It's that I spend a lot of time just making decisions or changing things, which is the thing that most people say that's the downside of digital, is that you get so caught up in the undo button and the infinite erase and redraw, which anybody that watched me create Morningstar will know that I have that problem in pen and ink. I'll do a page, be unhappy with it, and I'll be like, no, I'm going to redo this page, or I'm going to redo this panel. So I tend to, even working traditionally, I will redo over and over and over again until I'm happy with it. So digital makes that process easier. In fact, that might be the reason why, that might be the appeal for me personally of digital, is that the process which I spend all this time in terms of rethinking and revising, it allows me to do that quicker. So I can just get to whatever the final thing that I end up doing faster. At least that's the theory. We'll have to see how it actually works out. Now I am using the smudge tool and I'm just smudging out the detail of some of this line art. Just kind of smeared it around. Let's see here. Cassiel says, I don't know when I go further, when I'm starting to paint, we'll use digital tools or something more traditional like oil. And Amar says, draw with pen, then you don't have to worry about mistakes. You learn to accept them or work with them organically because you can't erase unless you use whiteout. Let's see here. Yeah, Amar hit it right on the head. He says, if you do really detailed work and you're a perfectionist, then you will take longer regardless of the tool. See, there you go. Spot on. That's me. And you know what? I just need to own it. I am a perfectionist. Um, that's my curse. I want the things to look the way I want them to look, and if I have to redo it a bunch of times to do it, then that's what I'll do. That is the curse that I live under. All right, this piece I think is getting close to done. I feel like she might need some texture in her skin because it just feels a little bit too smooth to me. I'm going to get rid of that other line art that I had. Hang on, I have to unlock it, then delete it. Unlock, delete, and lock this one. Let's see here. Let me add some texture. see here. Some more comments. Let's see here. Interesting. Daniel says, I'm thinking about hiring a writer to help me bring my comic to life. Any tips on working with a writer when I already have a clear vision in my head, but I'm not happy with how it's coming out story-wise? Well, I think I haven't done too many collaborations. I like doing the whole process myself, and I'm a little bit of a control freak. I think that you can find a lot of writers that are eager to work with artists. Usually, writers want to either hire an artist or find an artist to collaborate on their ideas. So maybe you could do a bit of an exchange with an artist, with a writer, and say, look, I have a story I want to do. Instead of having to do a thing where you're splitting ownership and it gets messy, you could do something where it says, look, I can be a writer for hire. I can be an artist for hire for your project. You can be a writer for hire for my project, and we'll exchange services. And just, you write my character, but I still own it. I draw your character, but you still own it. That way it's kind of like the only difficulty is that it's not. I don't want to say that the writing is less valuable. It's that the writing is less time consuming. Even if he sits down and he writes, you can end up writing like a whole, I don't know, 6-issue, 12-issue arc for your story and the time it might take for you to draw a single issue of his. So it's a matter of figuring out what would be something that both parties, the writer feels fair and the artist feels fair. That's the most important thing, is sitting down and saying, okay, here's what I want out of this collaboration. Here's what I expect to own from this collaboration. And then them telling you, all right, what do you expect to own and what do you want out of it? And they're probably not going to line up. And then the idea is to say, all right, from this standing point, let's try and negotiate. Let's look at what happens if we meet in the middle. Does that still not feel fair to either party? Then you go back and forth. So it's a conversation. And I would say probably the most important thing I would have, you know what? I think that the ability to negotiate without feeling hostility. Because sometimes when people negotiate, they feel like, oh, this other person's trying to screw me, or this other person doesn't value me. And I don't think that's true. I think people are coming from their own perspectives and deciding what they want without necessarily understanding what the other person wants and what they value. So having a person that you can sit down and explain why you feel the way you want, why you feel like you deserve what you want, being able for both parties to have that conversation is probably the most valuable thing you can have in any type of collaboration. If you just say, hey, I'm looking for a writer to draw, if you say I'm looking to collaborate with a writer, that's like ringing the dinner bell in Jaws. It's like blood in the water. Writers will swarm and come and find you if you've got good work. But it's the fact that you want them to work on your project. That's the thing. Maybe it's something, maybe you do something where you do, in the end, you have to figure out what it is that you want. It could be that you find somebody who becomes a permanent collaborator. You guys build something together. But if you have an idea and a character you do right now, but you're not happy with the story, basically the conversation you just had with me, that's like, it's a blog post. You put the word out there that you're looking for a writer to work with and go from there and figure out. But it is important for you to figure out what it is that you want as the creator. Do you want to do something where you're splitting ownership of the character? Do you want to do something where you own it completely and you pay them out of pocket to write for you? Is it something where you do a certain amount of work for them or their characters in exchange for them writing on your characters? Figure out what you want, then start putting feelers out there. There's a great website called Digital Webbing. That's kind of like it's an online forum for people looking for collaborations. And they also announce paid projects, both for writing and for art. Yeah, that would be my advice to you. Let's see here. And we are a little bit past an hour. So I am probably going to wrap this up shortly. Let's see here. Ion Rocks says, "So are you drawing?" I'm not sure what that question is in relationship to. It might be in relationship to the chat because I'm kind of skipping around in terms of like all of them because there's a lot of conversation going on in there. Let's see here. Amar says, "Since you have no physical responsibility to wasting materials," this is back to working in digital. More time is spent using filters or features. People get caught in the features rather than doing art. And he says, I would say both equally take the same amount of time. The truth is out. I'm not sure what that part is. All right, guys. So let's see here. Or I don't know if the truth is out is about me being a perfectionist. Yeah, that is something I can no longer deny. I am definitely a perfectionist. So let me see here. Let me select. Her skin again. And I just don't want her skin to feel so flat and so smooth. But I don't want to add muscles where I don't think they really need to be muscles. So let's start by picking the shadow color. And then let's warm that up, give a little bit more saturation. And then let's look at some textures here. It'd be nice if they had like just pores. That's really what I need. It's just pores. Materials. Here we go. Flowing hair, old skin, stubble, zombie skin. She definitely doesn't have old skin. She just really doesn't have stubble. Let's just try a simple noise brush and see how that does. Get a noise brush. See how big this tip is. And then just give her a little bit of that. Let's go larger. Bring down the opacity a little. Bring the opacity back up. Yeah, I'm gonna have to play with this a little bit. This is not going to be interesting to watch because it's just gonna be me playing until I find something that feels like pores in her skin, and then painting that in. For the most part, this piece is almost done. I may end up posting it online for sale, start making prints of it before the next live stream. I still need to tweak it and finish a few things. See, here's the thing. I believe in sharing the ugly process and the little fine details. So it's not like I try to make as much of me creating the process in public so you can see all the stuff that I go through in order to get to a finished piece. But I also don't want to bore you guys. And just watching me play with brush sizes to try and find the right size pores, that just does not sound like good live stream. It just does not sound interesting. So, well, you know what I will do before I wrap up is that I might be out of layers, but let me see if I have room for one more layer. I do. Glow. We're going to rename this glow. And I'm going to select. Actually, I'm just going to deselect because the glow is going to spill over the foreground characters. So let me just deselect everything and go to a soft brush. Let me go to my my personal brush settings. Grab my my soft brush. And this is one of those where It's a matter of it's seasoning here. A little bit goes a long way. A large brush on a low opacity. Oh wait, that's the red. I don't want that. Let me I want to grab color from here. Actually, I can turn the opacity up a little bit right at this edge of the light. I just want to get the sense of like light kind of bleeding out from this edge here. So I'm gonna do a little bit of this before I sign off for today. Let's raise this size up and see if we can get a little bit of just. Now, I will tell you that this is one of the things I do not like about Procreate is that it doesn't have, and we've had this conversation before. Yes, I know it has gradient maps, but I do like a nice basic gradient tool. I think what I'm going to do is just paint this in and then come in and erase some of the lights that are blowing out the serpents. So this is probably too much, but I'm going to come back in and try to knock it back down in terms of the areas where there really would be some shadow. Bring this brush size back down a little bit. Size down a little bit more. Oop. Now what I want to do is I want it to be a little bit brighter right along the edge and then erase out some of what's going over the serpents if it's too much. I need to blur out what's kind of in this area underneath. Knock that back a little bit while adding it a little bit more intensely right along this line. Oops, see, every time I put that in there, not quite right. Right in here, a little bit of. Let's see here. Smudge with a soft brush. Smudge that back into place there. That doesn't look like what I want. Actually, let's see what happens if I take all of this, just give it a Gaussian blur. Let's see here. That helps. Yeah, let's commit to that. All right, and now I can come in and instead of the normal hard eraser I use, switch to a soft brush so I can maintain that lighting. And just carve out, whoops, no, that's not what I want. I want the eraser. All right, eraser, soft brush. Size down, opacity up a bit. And now I just want to get rid of some of this. This glow that I've got on there. Let a little bit of it bleed over on the edges, but bring the core of the lighting that I was painting in, bring the core of it back out again. And one supposes I could have just painted all of that in. But left the serpents unmasked the first time. But it just mentally, for me, it's easier for my brain to process blowing the whole thing out with that glow and then coming in and removing the glow from the places that I want to shine through. So, I try to adapt the process to however, all of our brains work differently. And I try to adapt it, whatever I'm working on, to the best way for me to process these things. Bring this brush size back down, back in there. Okay. All right, so I still have some cleanup to do here with this glow, and then adding a little bit of texture to the skin, some pores. But other than that, I think this piece is almost done. Wow, I can't believe I spent this much time on it. I really got to get faster. All right, guys, let's wrap it up here. Again, everyone, thank you for hanging out. Thanks for the lively conversation in the chat. Let's come back to the big screen. So again, thank you, patrons and subscribers, friends, supporters of the channel. If you're new, please subscribe and share. If there's anybody you think would enjoy these videos, forward the link to them. They enjoy hearing process talk and hanging out, watching artwork being made, comics and art and illustration. Come on in. That's what we do here. All right. And if you would like to become a Patreon subscriber, we do a Patreon exclusive live stream twice a month called Art Book Study Group, where we dive into some of the best art books around and try to suck up all the knowledge we can. You can read on comic books for free. There's tons of behind the scenes, work in progress, animated GIFs and blog posts in terms of just, throughout the week showing what I'm working on. Get all of that for as little as $2 a month at patreon.com. That's patreon.com/Jeremy. There should be a description in the link. There should be a link in the description for the live stream on all platforms except Twitch. For some reason, Twitch does not let you have links on there, but should be a link in the on Twitch on my profile, so you can head on over to Patreon from there. If you would like a free digital sketchbook, be able to find out when I've got new artwork dropping, new comic books coming out, work in progress animated GIFs delivered right to your inbox once a month. You can sign up for my monthly newsletter for free at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comic books, or if you read traditionally on Comixology or Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. They'll forward you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up books like my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. It's a psychological thriller about a man. He is cursed with visions he cannot control. Always with that glare on the cover. Very shiny cover. So, psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. It is a black and white 144-page graphic novel. On YouTube, there are links to book flip-throughs. You can actually flip through the book and check it out. You can pick up my most recent comic book, Morning Star. It tells the story of Lucifer's fall from heaven as a Western. It's an 8-issue series. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains issues 5 through 8, the conclusion to the series. Both have extensive back matter, character design, sketches, page layout, script excerpts, and more. Check out all of that at amazon.jeremy.net. That's GERIMI. So thank you, everyone, for the great comments and conversation. I look forward to the next time. That's it for now. Go be creative.